Welcome, welcome to the 𝗪𝘀𝗀 podcast, Coming Home, Wilder Ways of Living. And I'm here with Linda Pappa today, and I'm so happy to see you. And we will talk about our journeys. So the title of the podcast is Coming Home, and I want to share stories of people who are on this path of rewilding, of reconnecting with the land. And I was happy to meet Linda this summer on Crete, on her magical island. And I was so touched by that whole surrounding there and this like grounding energy. And we had so many beautiful conversations also about the challenges, how it feels to arrive in secluded areas. And I'm curious to talk about it today and dive into it deeper. And for the start, I've brought a poem today. So I like to do a little embodiment exercise in the beginning, or now offering a poem. And I actually listened to this while I was on Crete. It was on the 𝗪𝗪𝗀 podcast, the Rebirth series. And it's by Dr. Gavin Van Horn. And if you like, Linda, you can close your eyes, and the listeners, you can get comfortable and just listen to the words. If words can do something, if they can sink into the heart, open up new path of perception, lead us to the threshold of a forest. This is all to the good. Then we must leave them. They've done their work. They got our bodies where they needed to be. At this threshold, we must thank them for their service and lay them down. It's time to stop speaking and listen. Come to the trees to forget and remember. To forget the straitjackets of manufactured time and cubicles. To remember something much older than the Gregorian calendar and the 40 hours work week. Come to the trees to touch and be touched by something more primary, more whole. And just taking a moment to let that sink in and arrive in your bodies. I feel when we talk about nature and reconnecting with the land and the more than human community, it's hard to put it into words, and it's like silence or the feeling, it just speaks for itself. It must be experienced. But nevertheless, we're here today sharing some words. How did this land with you, Linda?
It almost feels counterproductive to share it in words. It was so deep. Um, yeah. Oh, I feel really, really touched by this sharing. Thank you so much. It really brings you to indeed something so pure, and it reminds me why I'm on this path that I am.
Yeah. And you're joining us because people are also seeing the visual from quite a different surrounding than what you're used to. So this is not Linda's little village home in Crete. She's in Athens right now. So yeah, it felt extra fitting to share the poem to ground us. And yeah, before we dive into any story, like as an introduction, I would actually love to share 5 quick questions that you are invited to answer, just with the first thing that comes to your mind without overthinking it. And so I don't like introductions, so this is this is the
Wonderful.
introduction.
Yeah, I love that.
What's one thing that sets your soul on fire?
I love this question. Uh, does it have to be one thing? Can I just like flow with a bunch
Try
of
one
things?
thing.
One thing. Um, okay. Devotion.
Yeah.
Devotion. Yeah.
Hmm. To which kin of the more than human world do you feel especially connected to?
Here too. I have quite a few to share, but I'll stick to the clay.
Yeah, that makes sense. We will speak about this more, I feel, in this podcast. Hmm. What are you currently unlearning?
Mm. I am unlearning ways to operate that have to do with filling the outside world's expectations of me and their image that they project of who I am. Yeah, and undoing those ideas. Also within myself, undoing my own illusions, um, to find always purer and purer ways of relating to my own essence.
Mm. Yeah, such a potent and important journey. Not always easy, but I feel you on that. I'm with you on that. Okay, a bit of a lighter one. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I love these questions so much. Ah, hmm. You know, lately I've been thinking like, oh my goodness, there's just so many things I want to do, that I want to create. Sometimes the creative energy flowing through this body is just so intense that there are moments where I've wished that I could just, like dispatch, like clone parts of me,
Yeah.
and like, okay, this part is gonna make this or that. These are these vessels and ceramic pieces. This one is just gonna be somewhere up in the mountains, receiving their energy. Um, this other part of me is like floating in the ocean,
Ah,
just to be.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Linda clones. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, the last one. Finish the sentence. Home is.
Home is where we land.
Thank you. I would love to hear a bit about your story, and in this podcast, I'm inviting people, and I also am sharing it myself a bit, the story of place. So exploring how the places we lived at inspired us, informed us, and would you like to share a bit, like in which kind of environment you grew up, if you had like access to nature, if your parents or grandparents had any connection to nature, or anything from that realm?
Wonderful. Um, I grew up in Luxembourg, which is my father's um, country. My mother is Greek. Um, and when I was little, we lived in the countryside of Luxembourg. And I really do feel that this nourished me a lot as a kid. Um, Something that I used to love doing was just being alone, walking with the dogs. We had a lot of dogs. And just watching them, just watching how curious they were and how they were interacting with the environment, that they would
Yeah.
you know like run in the wet grasses and not care. And I wanted so much to just be like them. And I was uh, and
I
I
love that.
simply loved, yeah. And I have some very clear memories of just simply smelling the rain, being in the rain, watching also other creatures like the snails. I still feel such a strong connection to snails, actually. Every time I see them, I want to cry because it just it brings me back to those years of being a kid and just walking the dogs under the rain and stopping at some point and watching the snails. Um,
I used to collect
yeah,
them, and I always put
you
them in my
did.
pocket as a child. So at some point, I had like so many snails in my pocket. My parents needed to empty them.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness. They're good
mm,
friends. Yeah, I was also like an only child for quite a while until I was 9 years old. So it's not like I had any siblings or any company to entertain me. That also just really brought me to the appreciation of like this solitude, being alone in nature, and just finding non-human friends basically.
yeah, that's
Yeah, it
beautiful.
just it fits with it, and it still does. It fits a lot with my personality because I'm quite a sensitive person. I can be quite extroverted, but and I can be social, very like extrovertedly social and interested in other people. I love meeting people, um, and I've healed a lot from how I relate to humans. Um, but yeah, this touch is always a part of me that's like this child, that's still very sensitive, and and that's still within, feeling things very strongly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel animals, I mean, dogs, they are like such happy, curious beings. And it's just every time, I think of nature connection and just being in nature, I feel it gives space to this like innocent part of ourselves, these like playful and curious parts. So,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. just to be in nature, to smell, to feel, and to be touched by nature, to touch nature and to be touched by it. Like, it makes me think of the dogs running in the wet grasses. It's like so ecstatic, like they want to run in the wet
Yeah.
grasses, and they don't, they don't care about their fur getting wet. It's actually like that's the pleasure of it. Like, yeah.
Yes, full immersion.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I feel like when this seed is already planted so early in us and we have access to nature and animals, that yeah, it does something with us. It's like it's growing and it's like this distant voice, maybe we lose that connection over time, but yeah, when we get to experience that in childhood already, it can be so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel that this was such an important part of, yeah, like what I took in, um, yeah, growing up. And yeah, now there were moments where I lost this connection for a little bit because I had other things on my mind and my life was about something else entirely. But yeah, the recent years I've come back to it so much. And it's just opened so many doors. Um, it's so deep. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you maybe extend a bit on this phase between the childhood and now the landing? I know you've been traveling quite a lot and traveled the world. And how was that phase for you? What did you learn there? What were you seeking, or what was calling you?
So yeah, like up until a few years ago, I was quite nomadic. And actually, technically, I still am. I really do enjoy traveling a lot, but I'm at the point where I'm rethinking what traveling means, and how to travel in a more integrated way. But yeah, I had some phases in my life where I was like moving around quite a lot, and I lived in many different places around the world, basically just living off of a suitcase and working online. And there was something so powerful about this time also, like it was necessary to totally uproot and to absolutely be in this state of like, okay, you are nobody, because there's also an aspect when we root in some place. We can touch on that again later, maybe. It does forge a part of our identity of or who we think we are, you know.
Yeah.
And that's also the root of culture, of course, of many beautiful things. But yeah, that's why, on the other hand, when we uproot and when we travel and we just completely detach, it's almost like we can detach from that part of what we identify and meet ourselves as like, oh, this doesn't have any label. Like, who is this person that is within this witness. Who is she when she is in another land, in another country? How does she think? What is touching her? Um, so that was very beautiful for me to experience that, like being between different places, and some lands really spoke a lot to me, and their cultures as
Which were
well.
those?
Definitely Japan would have to be on the top top of that for sure. There was just something so profound about observing how human culture has simply been shaped by this contemplative connection to land and to spirit. Um, yeah, it's very, very different than other places in the world, of course. It's, like for example, with Greece, it's very, very different. It's much more, it feels to me like almost that it's connected to more abstract concepts and a space and silence. Um, and yet there's so much complexity and poetry in between the layers. Like something that touched me very deeply, for example, in Japan, was how many words, different words, they had for different um, phases and aspects and things that had to do with the cherry blossoming. Um, so there was there was a term for the full bloom of the cherry blossoms, and then there's another term for how the blooms land in the water and create this bed when they
Wow.
fall. And that just completely blew my mind. It was like absolutely extremely inspiring to me.
Yeah, what a poetic way of relating and speaking. Like even when you just were speaking about it, I got these like images and this like sense of like, wow, the blossom landing on the water, peacefulness. Beautiful.
Yeah, and it actually, it makes me realize now that when I say I had other things on my mind, I did, but still, somehow, those aspects of connecting to place and to land, they were still there. I really still got very affected by what I saw. It did mark me in that same way that things mark me now. So it's like the thread was never really cut.
And when did you notice like that this yeah, lifestyle of the traveler and the nomad, when did it start to like not feel like fitting anymore, and how, yeah, how did you come to know where you want to land?
That was basically when we were in Japan. At some point, we lived in a very tiny house that belonged to a friend that we really adored. And we just realized, like, oh, yeah, that feels really good, just to be able to be here and to just leave our stuff here. And maybe we should have a base somewhere. It was getting tiring to move around all the time. And there was this need to like have a place to just rest in between. The idea was to continue being nomadic for most of the time, but to look for a base, to look for somewhere where we can, really just have a home, have a roof over our heads, leave our things, create things in a more longer and sustained way. And as soon as this question was being asked, out in the open, out in the ethers, it was very clearly Crete that was speaking to us and giving us the call, like, oh, well, your home is here. We had been coming to Crete for many, many years. And every time this island had marked us, it had been, I think now it's been like 17 years that we've been going to Crete, actually. And, like just thinking back about how it was when we first started visiting, it was very like potent in a subtle way. Like there were lots of openings that happened every time we were there, just because of how, I mean, there's many reasons, but it's a very powerful place. It's a very like
Yeah.
energetically charged place, which I came to find out later as it was, courting us, and then we made our way there. to actually get the house. But yeah, sorry, I lost my my train of talking. Yeah, we followed that call basically, and we found our house on the island, and it's been really something very immense for us to embark on. It has definitely made us live in a more grounded way, less nomadic after all. We want to continue traveling, but we are rethinking a lot about how we want to do that. And for me, being in Greece, that has just opened so many portals, like deeply like ancestral portals inside of myself. You know, it's funny because that was not even really my intention with moving to Crete. I didn't choose to go to Crete because I have Greek roots. It was just more like, well, I feel really good there and it doesn't really matter. You know, it didn't matter to me so much back then, but you know, those things reveal themselves over time. And, you know, I really believe that they're there all along and they just become opened like boxes. And yeah, it's been extremely potent in that way. I'm really connecting a lot to my roots, even though I don't have roots that are specifically from Crete. It's just the Greek land overall. But I feel something very strong whenever I'm on the island. It's really like a mother. Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's really a special place. Um, Before we go into the potency and all of the gifts that you uncovered there, I would also love to speak about, yeah, maybe the challenges, because I know like so many people have this dream of living more connected to nature, living on the countryside and so on. And I know for myself, I had a very romanticized just notion about how it would be to live in nature, and had to realize, yeah, being a traveler is something so different than actually rooting on the land in the community, that it's such a different thing. And yeah, maybe you want to speak a bit on that, on, yeah, also the challenges and the hardships
yeah.
that came with it.
I absolutely love this topic. Um, because yes, there's been a massive shift in consciousness and in desires and longings, especially since COVID happened. You know, there's been a lot of us who questioned, you know, just like where is home, and along with that, there's also been a bit of, yeah, like an illusion weaving and romanticism of like, I want to go live somewhere in nature. And but the thing is, um, every land, yes, it has its nature spirits, right? It has its energies. It has its features in the land. If it's mountains or rivers or beaches and cliffs, whatever it is that speaks to you, that attracts you, there's that, and that's the mother. You know, it's the trees, it's the animals, it's the spirit of a place. But then the mother has children there. You
Love
know,
it.
every every place, every culture has been informed from place. Um, and at this point, I think we have to acknowledge that this is a part of it. Um, we have we go to a place and we have to at the same time acknowledge what is the nature there and the beauty and all those things that are like non-human. That is, I really feel like oftentimes it's that which speaks to us first, because we just simply create the space to receive, and it's so potent. Really, place can speak to you from this very raw relation with place. But yeah, when you root somewhere, you realize that yeah, there's a community there. There are people, there's a culture. And in my case, it's been extremely fascinating to find myself. Actually, I live the house that I chose, or that chose me. It's in the middle of a village in the Cretan Mountains, and it's been fascinating and also very strange to realize that this is a village that was basically founded by 3 families, local families that live there, and their descendants are all mostly there. So, just this feeling, like journeying with that feeling of being also a stranger in this very old village where people have been for so long, and they have so many stories and links between them. And in Crete in particular, there are strong traditions that are all extremely fascinating. I mean, to me at least, I see many people who come, for example, to Crete, and they're not interested in that. They're just like, I'm just here, and well, I love the place, and that's it. But really, I feel like it's important, if we want to speak about the path of belonging, yeah, to show interest also in those cultures. And it's not about like, if they are a bit like put off by our presence, that's okay. In my case, thankfully, it was not at all the case. I've been received in a very friendly way, and it does help that I speak Greek too. I got adopted by so many people in the village, um, that became dear friends, and I just feel that really loving presence. But yeah, I feel like no matter what, it's beautiful to just simply acknowledge and show interest to those who have been there as custodians of the land before. Um, like borders now are like, being dissolved, and we travel a lot, we're like a very global culture and community. And what is community? What does it mean to be even indigenous in some place? But every place has its indigenous people. In that term, to be indigenous, we oftentimes associate it with like being, like the Amazon and the tribes that we know in certain contexts, and just those ideas that we received what indigenous is. But indigenous is simply, it's what has been there in a
Yeah.
continuous way on the land, and that is everywhere. Yeah, so to come back to, how that relates to, it's not exactly a struggle, but a journey that I've been on. Yeah, that has been a topic that has opened up more and more for me, because I did come to Crete more for the power of the land and the elements and nature. But more and more, I find myself interested in knowing the culture, knowing the people, knowing their stories, knowing their songs. Um, Even if they're not exactly the songs of my ancestors, I just find that is such a beautiful way to integrate ourselves in new places, because people are part of it too. Um, and yeah, that can come with its ups and downs. That takes time. It takes time to find that you belong somewhere. Um, Yeah, there are more immediate things, more immediate confirmations, like how good you feel somewhere when you are in natural places all by yourself. And then there are more long-term relationships that weave over time with who else is here? What do they how do they relate to land? What is there? No.
Yeah, I feel like with the internet and having so many options and like to choose from, that it's kind of easy to, I mean, how we found together, it's really, yeah, on a soul level, like we share the same interests, we have the same way of connecting with nature or similar ways, and it was really like this resonance. And then, living in more rural areas, you can have really conservative neighbors, by example, or like, yeah, really different political mindsets, or living in a city, you have so much choice, and then you arrive in rural areas. And we also spoke about just that privilege of space, of having, big spaces where people can gather and create community. That also where we live, it's a very poor department of France, and there's not, like big infrastructures everywhere. So it really takes time and patience and finding ways. And I think it's a beautiful movement of younger people wanting to come back to villages, wanting to come back to living in nature. And it's definitely a process of learning how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I feel also this whole thing about like, okay, who is like-minded to us and what are we looking for in our relationships with other people? Um, it's interesting to explore this in a multidimensional way, also where we let go of certain outcomes. Um, I love, absolutely love what the online world allows us to do, to find each other and to be able to connect in such deep ways that don't even need like too much navigating. It's just like, oh, like I love what you're all about. I love what your work is about. I love your expression and I connect to you that way. And we connect to each other that way. We can also choose a bit more, um, and feel that sense of like-mindedness uh, in how we think, um, and that's very nourishing. Um, but more and more, I actually I found it quite interesting sometimes to push my boundaries a little bit,
Yes.
and with like, because we have so many received ideas of what, oh yeah, well, the locals here, they are like this or like that, but they're all people like us. Um, and if we cannot connect in the way that we expect, or that we like to connect with those that really, really get us, um, there's still something there, I feel that is interesting to explore, even just a certain curiosity, like asking them questions or, introducing ourselves. It's a beautiful driving force to connect to place in general. Like, okay, who else is here? Even if they're like widely different, they don't do what we do. They don't think the way we do. Their ideas might differ. But I just think that's such a special experience, just as much as connecting to trees and connecting to flowers. And like when you touch a flower, you see a flower, and you're like, okay, why this flower is like, it feels a bit unapproachable, you know? It has thorns, it has, um, you know, it feels almost threatening, you know? But it's just the thrill of relating, simply relating to all that is, even things that intimidate us, you know? Yeah, I I'm going in a very like open and abstract place here, but this is very alive for me right now.
Yeah. No, I love that, like cultivating this curiosity, and there's like all these different layers of what brings us together, Sometimes it's shared interests and the internet, sometimes it is place, and I feel that nevertheless, like living in a village, or we live in a hamlet, it's not even a village, it's tiny. We have like three neighbors who live here permanently. And yeah, just by sharing place and sharing land, we share life. We share tools to work in the garden, or the neighbor came and gave me a glass of honey. She's a bee maker, and you
That's
have
amazing.
these, yeah, I know. And we have these points where we just organically touch and come together. And sometimes in a city, it's even more easy to get lost in anonymity and in the just overload of what's going on. And
Yeah, it's about those interactions, you know, with everything. That's what I find so fascinating about living in rural areas. The interactions with nature, with the trees, with places, with the elements, really observing how strong some elements can be on some days or others, moments of the year. And then the people, you know, like, yeah, it doesn't matter if your relation or yeah, your interaction with them is just about that pot of honey, you know, this 5 minutes of just showing care towards each other.
yeah.
But it is relating, and opening doors, and so much is happening in the unseen as we do this. I really believe that it's part of weaving this tapestry of love and care, with everything that's around us.
Mm. I love that you're saying that, and I just feel inside of myself something opening up also in the relation to place here, to the hamlet, because there are also the icky things, this is like not how I how I want it to be, and like neighborhood, is that a word? Yeah, being neighbors is difficult also and can be challenging. And
Absolutely.
I just love that you brought this aspect up again of like, yeah, just coming from this place of love and like caring for each other, and like not just on this superficial level of I want things to be this way, or I need this
Yeah,
from you. And yeah,
yeah,
great
yeah,
reminder. Mm.
yeah. It's such a great school of life.
Yeah.
Because everything is such an invitation to surrender more, to let go more, to open our hearts more, and to strengthen our
Mm.
communication, whichever way that comes through.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I love feeling your energy in this. Ah, yeah, and something that I'm also curious about, we spoke about it briefly now, but funnily, I fear for people who live in rural areas that the internet is such a big opportunity, because we get to live very secluded and have access to nature and like peace and quiet, and still have the internet and connect with like minded souls and find people who yeah, just we share heart energy with. And yeah, I wonder how it's for you at the moment. You also worked online. Are you still doing that? What is working for you around it? Have you maybe ever felt shame around it? Because I know I did. That I had these like notions of like how I need to be as a person living in nature, but then I only worked on that online at the moment. So yeah, I'm curious about your whole thoughts around this like parallel universe of the internet.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like we are in what Buddhists would call a bardo right now, which is basically a threshold. It's between death and rebirth, between the old and the new. That there's this passage, this transition. We're learning how to exist in this world, so it's really important to hold some compassion for ourselves and how we are trying to figure things out. There's definitely there's this new world, new way of operating, and there's an old way of operating, which are like, okay, how are they going to face one another? How can we weave them together? How does one pass to the other, and so on? Yeah, working online. I do work mainly online too, simply because that was what I started doing when we were in Luxembourg, that's what got us to start traveling actually, because basically the main part of the work that I do with my partner David is art direction, and you know design and creating visual languages for different projects and people around the world. So yeah, we started doing that in Luxembourg, and we wanted to dabble with like, can we do this from elsewhere? And it did work. We really did attract people from different places, so it didn't even matter where we are. At this point now, we are continuing to work a lot like this. And for me, then with my artistic work, everything that I do with that has to do with working with clay and with ceramics and ritual and so on, I still feel very strongly that it's beautiful to be able to share this work with people around the world, that it can be accessed and seen and witnessed all around. There's also a very satisfying aspect, of course, in being able to reach people who really care about this, you know. So
Yeah.
that's something very, very powerful about having the internet is, yeah, if we know how to use it in the right ways, that we can reach directly an audience who cares about what we have to share. Um, that's very confirming. It also helps us, I feel, to start building up our voice and to find, the things that work for us, the things that make us feel excited about our work also. So yeah, of course there's some aspects there that are more like shadowy, like that search of validation, um, on social media platforms and so on. That's, there's a lot of illusion that we can tap into there. But on the other hand, really it is such I see more the beauty in being able to play and to have a way to share what we're doing and that it's seen. Because
Yeah.
yeah, that gives us a bit of a feedback loop, that is very good for any creative process. Whereas yeah, I do feel the need more and more to connect with the local community. And I started to, for example, experiment with different things, like offering workshops here in Crete. And I'm thinking about more and more about the local community and how I can support them. Maybe the way that I would work my offerings or my interactions would not be exactly the same as what I do online. Online, I can be more, um, more daring also, because I have the assurance that that the right people will resonate with what I'm offering,
Yeah,
can be a bit
interesting.
more.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the context of a local community, it's like it's really asking you to. I find it interesting because it's like it's actually challenging your ego a lot. So any online, it feels very easy to start building up an identity and an image around everything that you do. It's like, okay, this is what I do, this is who I am, this is my aesthetic, these are my people, blah blah blah, you know. And when you're working with local community, it's like you're actually being asked to um, not like destroy that, but like let it dissolve a little bit so that it can be
To
more
ground
like
it.
water,
Mm.
you know? It's like, oh, okay, like just pay attention to like what are people looking for here. Maybe you have to also be able to relate to them a bit more, create something that's like more like in line with what they are struggling with here. I find it interesting to try to pay attention to that. I'm not saying I'm exactly there yet, but it's something that's it's part of a long-term journey for me, for sure. Yeah, yeah. And sometimes it feels like there's a split, you know, but with anything, I think it's important to simply give ourselves time because to
I love
even
that.
be, yeah, we need
Yeah.
time. This all needs time. We need to just relax. It's very important because we are in the
Amen.
strangest, yeah,
We need to fucking
yeah,
relax.
yeah, we need to chill. We are in the
Yeah.
strangest kind of transition already. Uh, yeah, there's a lot
It's
of
so
questions. So,
complex being
yeah, it's very
human at this
complex. Yeah.
time. It's just wild. And yeah, I love seeing or using the internet as a bridge when we live in rural areas, because I love that you can find and weave community and yeah, use that as a pathway. And yeah, I mean, my dream is it to work with people in nature here and facilitate rites of passages one day. And I also am coming to realize like how much time it takes me to arrive with this land and learn from it and really let this teaching sink in. And I feel it's like so easy to have all these ideas and then you arrive on the land and it's like, whew.
Oh, yes. Tell me about it. Oh my goodness, there's been like a lot of stuff that's been hovering around me, things that I've wanted to do, but it's like, yeah, it takes time. It's like the land really has its process with you. Place really has its process. Yeah,
Absolutely. It's
yeah,
like a relationship. You have to nourish and get to know and work with it and move through all the
absolutely.
ups and downs, dude.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I feel like we can slowly come to the end of this journey. And with that, I would love to hear from you. Yeah, what what comes alive inside of you when you think of connecting with the land and how you're being there right now, what nourishes you, what excites you.
Something that's very alive for me right now uh, is just the privilege to be able to contemplate the relationship between humans and nature across different dimensions and fields, and within the community that I live in. That is something that I feel just so extremely grateful for. I just came back from a workshop of learning the traditional songs that were sung in the mountains by the people here in Crete, and I was so profoundly touched by being exposed to that. I really love, yeah, just being on this journey, learning from those who have been on this journey before, and then the just the gift of being alive and being able to take this input and to create with it in devotion to Mother Earth is something that is like absolutely exploding my consciousness right now. Like I am so, yeah, I'm so excited for all that's to come. I really am in a portal at the moment with all of this. It's very yeah, it's very, very expanding. Yeah.
I love when you speak, like I can almost like grab like this creative life force like bubbling out of you. I just love that. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this journey with me and exploring all these different corners of reconnecting with the land and navigating the complexity and madness of this modern world. Hello again. If you've enjoyed today's episode, I would love to hear from you. If this has touched, moved anything in you, please share it. Leave a comment, give a thumbs up, subscribe to all the things if you've liked it. And if you can, please donate to our GoFundMe page. As of right now, this podcast is completely self-funded and we need you to continue. Thank you so much for having joined us and hopefully see you next time. Bye.